when you don't do well, I think you have to study harder. But nobody tells you, what does it mean? You mean that conversation ends there? It shouldn't end there.
It's a lazy piece of advice, and it's really demoralizing. It's just saying you're not putting in effort without the awareness of how much effort you actually put in.
It goes into a very blaming statement. We have not done it. That's why the results are like that.
I also hate the phrase study smarter. There are tricks and techniques, but the prerequisite is effort. How does a kid learn how to walk? You learn how to walk by falling down. We don't go, how come you fall down again? How come you fall down again? It is, good job, try it again next time. It's a very encouraging environment and kids learn to walk like that. So why can't we bring that into the academic realm, right? Naga, have your teacher ever told you when you were a student to study harder?
Of course, every time you don't do well, that's the easy or common phrase they will use. I think you have to study harder. Not only teachers, but I think also parents, friends, relatives, whoever. When you don't do well, that's very good. I think you have to study harder. But nobody tells you, what does it mean?
Yeah, so how do you feel back then?
I feel very irritated. Like, okay, because I think that I thought that I always studied as hard as I could.
Right.
But sometimes it just doesn't translate into results. So I don't know how to study hard. After some time, I realized, okay, maybe studying harder is, I'm not studying. I go into a realization, maybe I didn't study hard enough. But until now, I don't know what is studying harder means, really. Because I think maybe now, because I'm a teacher, I don't use that word or that phrase. I don't tell my students, you have to study harder. I suppose I will change it to maybe study the correct way. You're not doing it the right way. So I think my time, example like things like maths, doing it more and doing it for a longer period of time, studying and doing more questions and all that is the way, or that's what I understood that studying harder means. So I just keep doing it. Like example, when I was studying for O-levels, I just did more and more maths sums. Just practice 10-year series again and again. I bought like same 10-year series, like 5 copies of it and do again and again and again and again. So I thought that is studying harder and that will make me better. Maybe it did because I saw that there was a pattern. Maybe a few sums which I got wrong first few times. The third time I got it right because I know that this is my error. So that was what I started doing. When people ask me to study harder, or that's what I thought was studying harder. But eventually, I think it became, or it evolved into studying smarter. So what do I mean by that? It's a buzzword, right? Study smart now. That's a new thing. But also, again, it's a problem because I think nobody knows what is studying smarter means. So for me, when I reflect and I realized, okay, I started off trying to study harder, but that's what everybody said. That's the solution. But I think what I did was, I started while studying harder by doing more and doing for a longer period of time. I realized where my weakness are, and then I started thinking about how to solve this problem. And then I realized, okay, these are the areas which I always will make mistake. Then I forecast the mistake, and then I try to come up with preventive measures. So I think this is studying smarter, knowing yourself by doing more.
What I really hate. So like you, I mean, I get irritated when, I hear the phrase study harder. I think it's a lazy piece of advice, to put it crudely. It's back to the, read more to do well in English.
That's bad.
Eat healthier, exercise. It's those kind of like broad sweeping statements that really don't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
Because I think studying harder first, it's just basically saying, put more volume to it, right? I think in a lot of people's minds is put more hours into it. And more hours means more practices, more questions and all that. But like you very correctly said, I think it's not really about the hours. And I think sometimes it's quite demoralizing from the student's perspective. I mean, we were there too. Unless they're really completely not trying.
Yes.
I mean, there are those students. But I think a lot of us, we don't completely not try. And it's really demoralizing because it basically it's just saying you're not putting in effort without necessarily the awareness of how much effort you actually put in. So I don't like that because I think even from my experience, right? So I told the story about failing math and then, not doing that well and kind of like having a whole, redemption arc kind of thing, right? One of the things that I tweaked in that process was I realized that So I actually tried to study for math. I mean, when you first try to start studying for something, you don't know where to start.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
So what I used to do was I go through all my homework again. I read the textbook, because this was secondary level. There was like math textbook. I read the textbook. I go through the sums and all that, and I still failed. So along the way, I realized something, which was, I actually needed to redo the sums without looking at the answers.
Right.
I needed to do corrections after I get it wrong. I needed to have like a compilation of mistakes. So I used to, this was especially in JC, right? So I used to summarize, I'll do like test papers, TYS. I'll summarize on the first page. You always do this when this kind of question appeared.
Yeah.
You always forget. So it's just like a compilation of what I did. And that is so much more effective than doing more volume, because if I didn't change my methodology, just adding volume to it is just gonna repeat the same silly mistakes over and over again.
You get better at making the mistake because you do.
Exactly. But at the same time, I also hate the phrase study smarter. And the reason for that is because I don't like the idea that there is some sort of a silver bullet. Because I think people came out with that term with good intentions, which is, don't just study hard. As in, they mean don't study blindly, but study smart. But I think, again, it got taken like way too far from its original intention, because people always have this idea that, there's some trick, there's some technique.
Easy way out.
There are tricks and techniques, but the prerequisite is you got to have the effort. So I don't like how study smart has that connotation of, I can reduce the hours and get the outcome. Because the story I always like to tell my students is that if you, in my study experience, right, I was really lucky. I went to a lot of great educational institutions in Singapore, overseas. And one thing that was true in all of these places is that everyone studies hard.
Of course.
Right? My university library used to be open 24 hours, right, during exam season. And I used to like to study 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Wow.
Because the library is very, very crowded in the day. You have to book tables and all that. So I did the midnight shift. But even then, 8 p.m., I mean, less people, of course. But 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., you still see people.
Of course.
And the library is full in the day, right? In JC, the library was full, right? In secondary school, okay, maybe not so much because IP, right? But my argument is, if in top schools, people that are already academically inclined are putting in the hours and you don't, like, what kind of shortcut is impossible? Because these people have the techniques and the hours. So I don't like the idea of studying smarter. What I would say, right, if I can give a catchphrase, the catchphrase is study different. Study differently, right? It's neither like harder nor smarter, but whatever you are doing, if it's not producing results, change.
Yes, change.
Do something different, not reduce the hours, right? But do something different, because obviously there's something wrong.
I mean, you're right? Study harder or study smarter might not be a very good way to advise students, because as you said, I also realize sometimes when I say study smarter, people think it as a shortcut. There is an easy way out, or there's a magical spell which I can use to actually score better. But actually it's not. What I mean, or personally what I thought studying smarter was really knowing you yourself. You know what I mean? So basically, putting in the hours and the volume of the questions and all that, not necessarily will make you better. As I said, maybe it will make you better in making the mistake, because you keep making a mistake again. But after you make the same mistake, so first of all, you must be in the mindset to realize your mistake. And then you must realize it's the same mistake you're making at the same time. So knowing where you make the mistake will make sure that, okay, you have to put a stop to that. And then after that, okay, what can I do? You go back 2 steps and then you check, how come this mistake is repeating again? So all this is actually knowing your own learning process, how you learn, how you end up doing it wrongly, how can you revise your methods to actually make you do better the next time. So all this, that's what I call it study smarter. I mean, if you don't like the term, it's okay. But studying your way. Or actually, when you study smarter, I feel that you're studying yourself, because you're actually realizing what you're doing. Because a lot of times, I think students do a lot of mindless studying. That's another term I'm going to bring it. Mindlessly just study. Stare at the book, then line by line. I think we mentioned it in the reading also. People also just read. I've got students who I give them 5 minutes to read the comprehension passage. After I read, so what's the passage about? So they just like, so what, did you read? Yeah, I read everything, but nothing went in. So we have a lot of students like that nowadays. So what we do is that we try to make them think. So there's active learning. Very important. The mind must be open, and then the mind must be formulating things while you are reading and all that. So again, studying smarter is knowing yourself, where you make the mistake, where you're good at. Sometimes when you study smarter, you don't need to study everything. Like you realize not only mistake, like this area is good again. You're good, you are well versed in it. Some people go and read again and again. So don't do that. You can eliminate that out. So all this is actually knowing yourself. Yeah. So I think always comes back to students must be independent in terms of knowing themselves, where they are good at, where they are weak at, and all that. So I always come back to more than teachers. I think you started with saying that you hate it when the teachers say study harder. I hate it when parents say study harder. For example, I have an assessment done for the students, and then the results come out, and then I give to the parents, and the parents say, "Oh, study harder." I say, "You mean that conversation ends there?" It shouldn't end there. I think really you, as a parent, from a parent's perspective, what you should do is that really look at where it went wrong. Right? And then from there, if you can actually go back and then say, okay, maybe this one we have to do it differently. I think really the student will benefit from it. Because as you say, it's a very lazy advice. When you actually tell students or kids to study harder or even study smarter, you don't tell them how to do it. Right? Sometimes really, a lot of students really don't know. If you can actually get the engine started to actually make them see where is the junctions where they need to change. As you said, change is the word, buzzword for this. If you can change and adapt, and that really will motivate them. Because once you change, you can see a difference. Like you do a math sum. At step 3, you keep doing the mistake. You know what I mean? And then the third time you're trying it, step 3, this is where the mistake is. You change it, and then immediately something changes, right? The answer goes the positive way, the correct direction. And then you will feel the motivation, very small, but that will motivate you to do the correct things after that. So I think that's called studying smarter for me.
Yeah, so I think I think we're in alignment basically, which is we try not to tell parents or students blanket statements, right? Yeah. We really, really hate blanket statements, and we try to take a really prescriptive approach, to how to improve, right? I think the devil's in the details as always, right? You want to tell them exactly what you have to do differently. So I think on our end, what we try to do, our role is we go into the granular details, right? Which is not, oh, you fail, so study harder or study smarter, but it is, these 7 sections are okay. This 3 not so okay. Do these 4 things. Let's see what happens the next time. And again, I think this goes back to why I'm such a huge advocate of testing. Yeah. Because you need to try, right? You need to, change your methodology, see what happens the next time. It's a fine-tuning process. I always find that learning and testing is a journey of self-correction.
Of course, yeah.
Right? So you need to course correct. You need to doesn't turn out well. It's okay, right? I always think back to, how does a kid learn how to walk? You learn how to walk by falling down. Right? Yes, very, very cliche, but that's the truth. And we don't go, how come you fall down again? How come you fall down again? It is, good job. You walk 3 steps this time. Yeah. Try it again next time. And I think you want to build that kind of encouraging framework, even when it comes to academic performance, because it's more complex, right? I think people start going into study harder, studying smarter, because people don't understand the granular details of what it takes to get a better outcome. It's very easy to teach a kid to walk because it's like, just put one foot in front of the other. I hold your hands, and it's a very encouraging environment, and kids learn to walk like that. So why can't we bring that into the academic realm, right? Yeah. Why can't we do the same thing, the same kind of scaffolding, the same kind of, okay, let's not label your performance, right? Let's not say that you're lazy or you're not studying hard enough. Yeah. No, we take a solutions-based approach, right? What went wrong? What do we need to do next? Let's do these things, and then let's see whether you do better or not.
Like example, I totally agree with you. When parents say you have not studied hard enough or you have to study harder from now, right? It goes into a very blaming statement. We have not done it. That's why the results are like that.
Yeah.
But I think then you're just pushing the entire responsibility to the students' hands, which I think that, like primary school students, when they don't perform well and you have not studied hard enough, or you have not paid attention, you have not done enough work. So it's really blaming the student for that. I mean, yes, I totally agree that students have to take the responsibility for their own learning. But as parent, also as teachers, sometimes in the beginning stages, like primary school and all that, you can't really expect a lot of students to be that responsible because they don't know how to. So I empathize with them. So I go into, okay, let's help you sort it out. That's when you come up with strategies for the different personality types. So if there's a student who cannot like just by repeating, some students just when they keep doing it, they get better because through the process, like me, when I kept doing it and I kept getting it wrong, automatically my mind will tell me, okay, something is wrong. You have to look at where the error starts. So that's how my mind is structured. So it helped me. So I studied smarter. I started studying in a different way, which will help me and then prevent that error from happening again. That's what happened to me. But there are students I have also who are not able to even do that. They just do again, and then the error keeps repeating. And after some time, the danger is that they will start giving up. So there's no point telling them, study smarter, study harder and all that, where they themselves, okay, I cannot do it anymore. I'm just bad. So I get very, very upset when students say, I'm just not good at it. I can't do it. So I said, no, everybody can do it. So how to do it is the main thing. So you have to look at the students. So we have a very data driven approach because we keep seeing, we tabulate or we collate the data of the errors the students make. Like for example, in English, primary PSLE English, there's this section called the synthesis, the sentence construction thing. So we give every week the sentence construction questions. We look at what is the error. There are some students who make grammatical errors. So we say, okay, you are bad at synthesis, or you have low score in synthesis because you keep making errors in tense. There are some students who cannot, even the word is just on top, the question, and then you're writing the answer below, they are spelling the word wrongly because they're just not attentive into the spelling. So you have to tell them, oh, yours is a spelling error. So you have to, after you write the answer, make sure you come up with a technique or a checklist or something to actually make sure you check the words letter by letter so that you don't make the error. Some students, even worse, have missing words. That means they write the answer, but they will have words missing from the question. So there's different kind of students just by looking at one section. So if the parents, instead of saying study harder, you didn't do well because you didn't study harder, look at where the error is, what is going wrong, where it's going wrong, and then sit down and see whether we can prevent this the next time round. I think that is really the better way to solve it. Let's solve it together.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, we're trying to build an environment, or we are advocating for an environment where we always focus on improvement and not absolute results, right? Not like, oh, you're bad, you're good, you're not studying hard enough. It's like, here's where you are. Let's talk about where we can get you next, right? And then we kind of course correct until you get there.
Yeah.